All right, welcome back, everyone, to the. Oh, here's the first typo. It should be week 9 weekly review going into week 10. We've got Ryan and a newcomer, Mark, in the booth today. Say what's up.
Woo! What's
Hey
up, team?
everybody.
Finally getting someone else in here besides Ryan, David, Johnny. It's gonna be a good one. As you guys know, Mark just got eliminated. Sad face. So
Womp womp.
it was not expected, to say the least. I had Mark as a predicted Final Four
David and
guy.
I expected it. David and
David,
I expected it.
I think that was the only week. Like this was the week for it to happen, I guess, because of some bad matchups. And didn't you have some guys on bye too, like Kittle and
Mason.
Jordan
Can
Mason?
I can I also comment on the Ryan and David predicted us out bit?
Yeah, please do.
You did predict us out with Chase Brown on our roster, and we had not made that trade yet, so we
That's
would have
fair.
survived if we kept Chase Brown.
There you go.
Hold
So
on. Other counterpoint. Zach Moss had not been ruled out yet when
fair enough.
Are you
so
sure?
But like, I, I'm
Maybe he
not. I
is.
don't know which came first,
I don't
but
actually know. It's kind of crazy that it went from like, oh, he might be out this week to, oh, actually he's on IR to, oh wait, he's not gonna, he's missing the entire season.
yeah,
Just out of nowhere. Then we got Khalil
yeah.
Herbert, so we'll see what he does. I don't think it'll matter too much, but 10th place, Mark. 10 weeks. He made it 10
Mark.
weeks.
Yeah, I improved on last year.
There you go. Me and you both. Top 25%. I'm staying in the star zone here. James joining me with the flame. Average score of us two 140, up 7% from last week of 131. 140 is actually pretty, I think the second highest we've seen on the year of the average of the top 25%. Cool to see. Should keep going up. And then Ryan or Philip within the trash can, and Ryan getting the ice cube this
Give it
week.
to me. Give it to me.
Ryan is loading up on the bad accolades. Average score from these two of 94. Last week the average was over 100, so we're down 10% from that. And Philip, I believe this is back-to-back trash cans, and Ryan. Actually, yeah, this was the exact same. I didn't have to touch the slide for the pictures. Ryan and Philip were
Let's
the
go.
ice
Just
cube
trying to
trash
make your
cans.
life easier, Eric.
You
Just trying to
really
make your life
did.
easier.
You really did.
Yep. Saving you
Uh,
2 minutes.
Love it. So yeah, here's what it looked like this week. A lot more of a spread of the points from the top to the bottom than last week. Last week was pretty crazy. I don't know if we'll see this small of a dispersion ever until we're like really late in the season. There's not that many teams. But Mark right here with the highest eliminated score besides JC last week with 70. What'd you have, like 78, 79? Something around that range?
I deleted the app at some point before the Monday Night Football game ended. So I
No.
want to say we were like ending up around the set like high 70s.
Oh, is this your only league that is on Sleeper, so you can just delete the app?
Yeah, the all the other leagues are on ESPN Fantasy,
Oh man,
which is inferior.
it is, dude. I have all my leagues. I have 7 leagues in Sleeper, so it's like there's a lot of cool
Damn.
features to like swap between leagues and like see like if a guy is on waivers, like what league he's available in. It's
Mm,
very
I
helpful.
I've come full circle. I used to think ESPN was better, and I've changed. I think
Thank you,
Sleeper.
thank you, Ryan. I remember
yeah.
back in the day, back in high school, Ryan. Me and you had the NFL.com versus ESPN.
Oof.
Uh,
NFL. I
Garbage.
NFL.com.
NFL.com garbage. I don't know why I thought that was good, but sleeper's the way. So gotta
I
convince
feel
people
like
to
I
switch.
remember playing Yahoo Fantasy
Oh my god,
also
I
in high
never
school,
did.
something
another.
like that.
Yeah. Speaking of inferior platforms.
So yeah, that's about it for this week. Also, I guess highest average, highest little top quadrant here as well this week. Looking forward to tonight. I am scared about this game, but it should be a good game. In theory, high scoring. Over under is 53. Ravens are favored by 6. I think that's a reach. I would bet Bengals +6 for sure, as I would with almost any AFC North matchup. To be honest, you don't really see many blowouts happen in the
I'm doing
division.
that right now, Eric.
Thank you.
I am opening my FanDuel app.
Yeah, can you believe? I think this is a
I think it'll be close.
stupid
I'll
I
take
line.
think
it.
it's a close game for sure.
Like
I think it'll be
Ravens
close.
I lean
Browns.
Bengals.
Ravens Browns was a 9.5 point spread. I was like, what is that? The Browns are going to be fine, and they did. They won. The Browns won, in fact. So AFC North always bet on the what's it called? The dog, the plus, if it's over 6. But tonight we'll have Ryan with Burrow, Fleming has Chase Brown. Yeah, Fleming still has Chase Brown. Obviously, that was a big topic from last week. I picked up Jamar Chase. Higgins is doubtful. That'll be a tough call for James.
He's out.
Figure
Put
out
in
what.
Ridley.
Yeah, he's out in theory. You rarely see a doubtful player play. Phil has Lamar. Derrick Henry. James is Derrick Henry. Flowers is on Jake's team. And Deontay, I think Huff has him, and I don't know if he'll play him. And Ryan, you have Andrews, and I don't know if you will.
Darn right he's playing. Darn right he's playing.
You're starting him, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Likely out. I mean, Isaiah likely is out. So that
I didn't even know that. Didn't even need that info to know that I was starting Mark Andrews.
Yeah, Mark Andrews is a lock. He really turned his season around. He's pretty. I think he's startable for a couple more weeks before you really probably want to find an improvement. But
he had a bad week last week, but they just ran all over him. So
my confidence is back in him, though. I would say.
Yeah. And I think this is a high-scoring game, so that's really why.
Yeah, I don't know if we were following along to our performance last year, but the week after we got eliminated, CeeDee Lamb became the highest scoring flex player in fantasy after week 6, I think. So my prediction is that's going to be Jamar Chase for us this year, where he's been serviceable. He's been really good. He had a dud week last week, but I think he's going to go off in this game, and that's going to trickle the rest of the year. So good pickup, Eric.
Thank you. I now have the wide receiver 1 and 2 on the year on my team, so I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
He still has a bye coming up, which is a bummer, but I needed wide receiver help, and I couldn't have found a better guy. All right, and Monday, what will it come down to this week is Dolphins-Rams, kind of an interesting matchup. Tua's been back for a couple weeks now. Rams are favored 2.5. Over-under's 50, which seems high. I feel like the Rams defense is pretty okay, and the Dolphins are struggling to do anything on offense. I could see 30 plus from the Rams, but I guess in which case going over 50 isn't too crazy. But we'll have Achane from Huff, Mostert. Who has Mostert? Actually, it might be Fleming who has Mostert in the starting lineup right now, which is kind of a tough look. Tyreek Hill on. Who has Tyreek Hill?
Huff
has Tyreek Hill. You're right. And David with Waddle. Right now, James has, or no, someone has. Oh, Fleming has Stafford starting right now. That'll be interesting to see if he keeps that up. Stafford seems pretty fantasy viable given that Kupp and Puka are back, but it's still by no means a safe play. Kyron, you've got Kyron. Ryan, Puka is with Fleming as well. Fleming's got a lot here.
Yeah.
And Kupp, Ryan, you've got Kupp. So Ryan and Fleming have a lot sitting on this game. So, and those are two teams that could very well be in the mix going into Monday. No offense, Ryan. I really no offense to anyone. If anyone has 2 players on Monday night this late in the season, you're not safe. You're not going to be in the safe zone going into it, most likely.
Yeah,
I'll be safe.
I heavily lean Rams. That spread is too low for me. I feel like the Rams have been kind of cooking.
Oh, absolutely. They just beat the Vikings. They looked really dominant against the Vikings last Thursday.
Yeah.
So I agree with you.
Once they got everyone back healthy, like they've looked electric on offense. So
no, for sure.
Mark, thoughts on that almost being like a rat line? You know, like a
trap. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like that feels too low. It feels too low.
Yeah. What did the Dolphins do last week?
They barely did
lost
anything
to the Bills. Yeah, but that game wasn't as close as it should have been. Or
somehow that game was close. I don't get it.
They did not look good.
I think the Rams low key might have a better offense than the Bills right now.
Yeah, the Rams are good. Rams are good.
My funny thing I want to bring up about the Rams is how Demarcus Robinson is now catching touchdowns left and right now that Puka and Kupp are back. And as soon as both of them went out, I was like hammering all the waivers in all my leagues to pick up Demarcus Robinson, and he was the biggest disappointment ever. I thought, if you look at his like game log from like previous years when these guys are hurt, he goes off, and he just failed miserably as a wide receiver 1 on the Rams. He was getting 90% of the snaps every week and putting up like low single-digit points. But as soon as they come back, he starts popping off. So
he's against that.
Puka went out though.
That's true, but still, Kupp was in. And
yeah.
It could just be down to against Stevie ones, like it's good corners. Yes. DeMarcus isn't going to do anything.
Absolutely, that's got to be it. So.
Yeah.
Prove that he's not really that good of a receiver, but in good situations he can get it done. All right, Mark, here you are, ending the year averaging 110 a week. You didn't quite hit the 1,000-point milestone, we could call it, but came pretty close. Made it through 9 weeks. I guess we said 10 weeks earlier, but 9 weeks of actual playing. You made it through. Me, Johnny, and James all went over 1,000 last week. I'm quickly approaching Johnny to take over the lead here on points 4 on the year. Huff is pretty solid as well. And then there's like an extreme gap right here from Mark to Philip. 102 points down to Philip, Jake, David, Ryan, Fleming, all in the mid-ish 800s. Fleming in last. Fleming and Ryan are the guys that pull their starters, so...
Yeah, you can stop using that as a reason. I've gotten the trash can with all of my starters in the last 2 weeks.
But let's be honest, like the players you've taken out on the year, you'd probably have scored enough to be above these two guys. Yeah,
correct.
And
I know for a fact that Debo and Brees have like 20-point games from my bench. So yeah.
So our true lowest scorer, I would still say, is David. But yeah, that's really all there is to say here. And the economy, it looks a lot different this week, given that I spent the rest of what I had, and we had a couple other spenders. Huff spent a bit. Johnny finally spent a bit, but it didn't really change his position. He now is over 50%, owning 50% of the market with $68, with only 125 left in circulation. The average team at this point would be $14, so only 2 people above that line. James held on to his 27, and he's not looking extremely safe this week. We'll get into that, but he didn't spend anything. And if the trend continues, one of these high fab teams will go this week. We've had a high fab team get eliminated the last 3 weeks in a row now. Potter, JC, and Mark all were high fab teams. Like, if we look back 3 weeks, it was them 3 that I just said, and then me and Johnny. Jake was in there as well, but then he spent. So I was the one that spent, and I feel like that, I mean, obviously that helps. When you get better players, there's less of a risk, but holding on to fab does give you kind of an edge late in the season. But the high fab teams are dropping off now. So, in theory, we could see one of these two go. If James goes, Johnny will really, really own the market if he doesn't already. But to think if James goes, Johnny can get any player he wants for 14 fab, assuming Huff stays exactly where he is. So, yeah. Any thoughts, guys, on the market here?
I do think me leaving this early, and I was second highest in market share, I think, greatly benefits Johnny, of course. I feel like like half the league being under 10, that's like everyone is going to be struggling to pick up any players for the next couple weeks if Johnny plays it right. And it's week 14 that the waivers ends.
Yes, that is a good point. I'll bring that up. To those that forgot, one of the amendments this year is that the 3rd and 4th place rosters lock. So that would be week 14, after week 14. It's either after week, because then there's 15, 16, 17. No, I think it's after week 13 they lock. And then 14,
I feel
15,
like
16.
For these next 5 weeks, Johnny's going to be able to just pick up whatever best player gets dropped each week. So
exactly,
good for Johnny, and he's still got a super strong roster.
Right. And in theory, if I were him, and I think he seems to already be doing this exact thing, he's not going to put if he really wants someone, he's not going to bid 28 to make sure he outbids James, because also there's no guarantee James goes all in on a player, and then Johnny'd be wasting a lot of fab. If anything, Johnny probably only puts $8 bids on anyone he wants, because all that does is guarantee that he outbids all of these. And if one of these guys wants to bid more than that, I'm sure he doesn't care, because that just gives him a more dominant position if they want to do that. And his team is, in theory, good enough to survive with, as is. But as we've seen in the past 3 weeks, that's not the case. I don't think Mark, JC, and Potter were all pretty decent teams. So we'll see how it plays out. A lot of Grim Reapers on the board here. No one's really taken the cake. Sam Laporta has 3. I should really include him in this small up here corner where they're 3, but they're not rostered, because he is not rostered anymore. I don't think anyone's willing to take that risk until maybe a Mark Andrews situation where we see a couple weeks in a row where he does start to be used in the offense. In theory, the Jameson Williams suspension should have got him involved more, but it didn't. So I think hope is gone on starting Sam Laporta in this league after this week. But a lot of guys in this 2 category that are currently rostered, a lot that were just on Mark's team. Devontae Adams now 2, Marvin Harrison Jr. now 2, Kyle Pitts now 2, and where those guys sit now, Ryan has Mark Andrews, Johnny has Amari Cooper and Kyle Pitts. I don't think he's starting either of them, to be honest, but he has both of them. Fleming has Najee Harris, Marvin Harrison Jr. starting both of them, so that's interesting. I think it's a dangerous spot to be in. David with Lad McConkey, I believe, starting him. Phillip may or may not be starting Rachaad White, and then Huff has Devontae Adams, who may have finally hit his stride with the Jets, so I think he's fine. But
I don't think Phil's starting Rashad. I think he
I don't think so.
picked up Chuba and dropped him in there.
Yeah, Chuba. That's a tough call between Chuba and Rachaad White. Rachaad White has been consistent, not as consistent as Chuba, but now Chuba has.
I like Chuba.
Yeah.
Against the Giants
this week. Yeah. So yeah, these are. I guarantee you, all it would take is one of these teams getting eliminated this week to have your new head Grim Reaper. That should, in theory, happen. So.
Yeah.
That's it on the Grim Reapers. All right, my reaction to this week. We kind of already touched on it. The shocking Mark elimination opens up the Final Four race. History repeats itself. Mark goes out in a kind of unexpected manner. We didn't expect him to get eliminated last year when he did, and I did not. Like I said, of course, Ryan and David did apparently expect it to happen this week, but at least it was not as early in the year this time around. So to me, this truly opens up the door for multiple other teams to make the push into the Final Four. As a reminder, like the Final Four, those rosters don't get dropped. So it's like once you're there, you kind of got to roll with who you got or whoever else happened to already be on waivers. To me, it's kind of the race to get there and then figure it out. In theory, you want to have a good team when you get there already. So I have it as the locks as me and Johnny. Obviously, the league's unpredictable. One of us could get eliminated, but I'd say we're the biggest locks to make it there. Johnny, because he can spend more. I obviously have the best team in the league now. I don't have any problem saying that. I don't think anyone's going to debate that now. But I have no fab. Johnny has the fab to make his team very good if he wants to. Solid chance. Right, James. I had James in the conversation of like the locks. It was James and Mark with me and Johnny in the Final Four is what I thought was going to happen. But now Mark's gone, and James has got some tough matchups this week, and it doesn't look great. Huff and Ryan, I think, also have a solid chance. Your long shots, but definitely not impossible by any means. I have Fleming and Jake. They could sneak in. I don't think they have a great shot to win the whole thing if they make it, but they could sneak in. We've seen, like, last year, Tom sneak in, made it to the final 6, and then... But I would say the Final Four, once we got to, like, this point in the season, the Final Four was kind of predictable. Which last year was JC, Jack, Ryan, Cooper. So Ryan, the only surviving of last year's Final Four, I guess. I'm just realizing that now. So congratulations, Ryan. You're still in it.
Thank you.
And Phillip and David are, I would say, needs a miracle. David having 10 fab is, you can't downplay that. Or no, sorry, 4. Right? 4. He has 4 now. My bad. But he spent 6, I would say, wisely on a premier tight end in Kittle. And 4 fab at this point. You could probably... A single-digit fab can get you, in a couple weeks, a really solid player, probably, if you spend it all on one person. So, and you can make smart decisions with 0 fab as well.
Yep.
A lot of buys this week. Packers, Seahawks, Browns, Raiders. Coming up, we have the Bucks, Cardinals, Panthers, Giants the week after. And then I saw week 14, week 12, and week 14 both have 6 teams on bye, which we have not had that happen yet this season, any week with more than 4 teams on bye. So those will be really... And week 14 will be the first week of the Final Four, because 14, 15, 16, 17. Yeah. So the first game of the Final Four will have 6 teams on bye. That'll be interesting when we get there. But something to consider.
That's definitely something I feel like the teams that are in a solid place right now, like the Johnnies who have fob, needs to start taking into account if they want any chance in that 6-team bye week.
Yeah, like don't grab any studs that have week 14 buys.
Yeah.
Or don't overdo it, at least on them. You could probably have one and be fine, but yeah.
And just a note on David getting Kittle, I feel like that's part of the like reason we've survived some of these weeks, and a lot of the reason where we got knocked this week where Kittle wasn't there and Kyle Pitts was. Mm-hmm. So for 6 Bob, I think that's a very solid pickup.
Yeah. because tight ends
I
are
agree.
so shaky this year. So
Yeah.
having a trustworthy, dependable tight
Mm-hmm.
end is a huge deal
Mm-hmm.
in any league, but I'd say especially this league because it's kind of just about having a good floor and not getting last, and that's what a good tight end can get you.
Yeah.
All right, the graphs this week in terms of Fantasy Pros and Sleeper, me, Huff, and Ryan are favored.
Let's go.
Good job, Ryan.
I'm never in the green.
Let's go.
Johnny is not in the green for the first time in weeks.
Wow.
Just according
I'll say
to
Johnny
Fantasy
at
Pros.
times. I was gonna say at times Johnny had a low projected score last week. So while he was pretty safe, I don't know.
No one's ever safe.
Shaky matchups.
Right?
Yeah.
Sleeper likes him. Johnny is the second highest projected score on Sleeper. Goes Huff, Johnny, then me. But in terms of Fantasy Pros, he's the third lowest behind even Jake and Fleming. So, or no, fourth lowest, just above James, David, Phillip. So I think he's fine, but no one's ever really safe. Looking at your rest of season projection compared to next week, I am just way up there. I have almost what I am comfortable with starting if in theory I made the championship right now. I would probably just need to upgrade my flexes, which I think I can do for $0. Huff is the only other person in the green, so good this week, good rest of season, just barely above average. Only 3 of us actually are above this average line for rest of season. Johnny is the other one, but not looking fantastic this week. It's because David is kind of pulling down the median here, or the average, because his rest of season projection is so horrible. And then James, he looks really bad this week. I should have mentioned that on this last slide. This is kind of crazy to see because James has been riding up in this, sometimes yellow, but a lot of times green. But he flies down here because of injuries, because of terrible matchups this week. We'll get into that on his slide. And now finally the position strength budget. Johnny's the only one in the green because of his fab and his strength of team. I have the strongest team, but I have 0 fab. And then this Jake, Ryan, Fleming group is you're in an okay spot. You're above average in rest of season position strength, but you only have a little bit of fab to work with. Phillip also has 0, but his team is decently solid right now. And Nico Collins, I would say maybe not this week, but next week could be returning. That'll be a big addition back on a Phillip's team. Considering he has no fab, so there's no way he's going to get a player as good as Nico Collins without fab, unless he trades one of his studs. And then James, Huff, kind of this not very strong, but they both have fab. If you ask me, they kind of need to hold this fab position, or else Johnny can just walk all over us for the rest of the season. I jumped ship, so you can blame me too for spending all my fab and not holding on to it to force Johnny into bigger bids. But anyway, and David's a tough spot, but has a little fab. So my summary this week, no one has. I'm the only one with more than 2. There's no 3s this week. I have 2.5. Johnny has 2, and then Huff and Ryan. I would say Ryan. I had you up here last week. Questionable long term, but I'm no longer going to say you have a questionable long term because with these higher fab teams getting eliminated, you don't have to have fab to make it far. So you are. I would say it's an upgrade to go from here to here because I think this means you have the chance to bump your way into here if you play things right. Huff stays here. I moved Fleming up here. I think his team is good enough to survive in the short term, but I have a hard time seeing a good long term because of fab. Kind of similar with Jake, although he does have 7 fab, which is more than most actually at this point in the season. And James, last week I had no one down here. I think James is a team that actually does have a promising long term. He could make the Final Four, but in these next 1 or 2 weeks, especially this week, he's in a really tough spot. So if he can make it past it, he can get through. And David and Phillip stay down here with your as the 0s. Nothing changed there. All right. Oh, before we jump into all the team slides, for a time constraint for Mark, we're going to jump right to his slide at the very end and get his prediction. So Mark, last week your top scorer was Devontae Adams, which happened on Thursday. So if you knew that your top scorer had already played that after Thursday, that wouldn't have been happy to hear that. But the big
also
story, go ahead.
lulled him to sleep by trading Chase.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe.
that is. I was gonna say that
you?
was a lot of the reason why we traded Chase is because we felt not safe safer because Devontae had such a good performance, and also kind of the manner that Devontae like scored a last minute touchdown to get us to like what he scored 19.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Felt like you
all
stole it.
all all played into like, oh, this is going to be a good week for us. So we were riding a little too high.
Yeah, I think I've said that could happen sometimes, and this is probably the best like concrete example of it. Then that you can now attest that played into
Yep.
your decision to trade, and also you're you like Brian Robinson, so
Yep.
in theory that's a pretty fair trade, for the future of both those players.
It was
Um,
also a team morale pickup because I don't know if you know the team structure is me and two of my other buddies all manage our team together,
mm-hmm.
and one's a Bengals fan, one's a Cardinals fan, so they're both fans of those teams, and we had players on each of those teams,
But you
so we
picked the
needed
Marvin
a
Harrison.
commander to round me out.
Oh, I didn't know that you had two co-commissioners. I thought it was just
Yeah,
one guy. Wow. And who's this Bengals
so
fan? Who's this Bengals fan you speak of? I didn't
that
know
that would
that.
be P Mormon, big Bengals guy.
Ah, I didn't know another Bengals fan existed.
Yep, the few.
The very few. It's crazy. Baker was fantastic for you all year. Can't blame him. Although I looked at 18 was actually his second worst performance on the entire season, but was better than people expected him to do against the Chiefs with a depleted
Yep.
receiving core. So I
Yeah.
respect that you kept him in there. Some people might have jumped ship out of given the matchup and the team injuries. Devonta Smith was good too. But yeah, ultimately Chase Brown trading him away was a dagger. If you kept him, he'd be alive right now. And also the duds from Marvin Harrison Jr. and Pitts. That was. I've been wrong actually a lot on my predictions for like the quote unquote bad matchups these past couple weeks, but the Marvin Harrison Jr. matchup I did call that one out, and that did end up being bad. Also coming right after the
Mhm.
Call of Duty release, so Kyler Murray's obviously going to see a dip in performance, which will affect Marvin Harrison Jr. So yeah, 57 fab straight into the void. But you ended the season with 0 negative accolades.
I think that is the same as last year. I don't think we
Yep.
had any last places last year.
I think last year you were like multiple flames. No stars, actually. I think you had like
No stars. Yeah.
3 flames through 6 weeks, and then died.
But he
Yep.
also had he had like a what is it, the second place, a flame or a star?
Yeah,
He
no
had like the
stars.
180 point like second place week or something.
Oh yeah, I have some written down. I said I might do a little like league record recap because I went through some of the league history and found some. But yeah, one thing I'll call out here is the highest scorer of all time in a single week, as we all know, is Ben scoring 208 in week 4 of last year. Also in week 4 of last year, Mark, if you remember, you scored 185 in that exact same week, and that is the second highest score ever recorded in league history. Um,
This might be 2 years in a row an example of riding way too close to the sun. Because we went out 2 weeks later. I felt like we probably thought we were pretty comfortable. Um, so yeah, there's a lesson to be learned here.
There is, and that's why I'm cautious as well. I feel like even though I just loaded up on guys, this is exactly what happened last year. I got eliminated the week before
Hmm.
you, or no, I got eliminated the week after you because I picked up like 2 of your guys. I picked up like DK and CD off your eliminated team, and I was
Hmm.
like, oh my gosh, I'm loaded, and then I got eliminated right after spending. So to be fair, I made it this
Hmm.
far. If I get eliminated, it is what it is. I'm happy I made it this far, and I can go out saying I didn't leave any fab on the table, which feels better than going out with fab. But I'm still concerned that my guys can put up duds. Um, but yeah, and then the third highest score while we're at it all time was also last year. JC in week 13 put up 177. So kind of crazy that even like that late in the season, week 13, 14, 15, like the championship teams did not score more than that.
Hmm.
The two highest scores of all time came in a week 4 so far. Let me look real quick if Mark, you own any other records on that I've written down here. Oh, most fab ever accumulated at one point in the season,
Was
which
that had to be last year?
last year you were Johnny got up to 150 this year in week 4, and in week 2 of last year, no, sorry, week 3 of last year you got up to 138, which is the second most we've seen all time. Third place is Ben, 135. He got to earlier this year in week 2 because he traded Saquon. We all remember that. And yeah, that's it. I don't want to spoil too many of the records, but maybe I'll just wait. I don't know, Ryan. You think I feel like I should just wait until the end of the season to go to cover the cumulative records from
I think that would be good.
both
Yeah,
seasons? Okay, I'll wait.
Yeah.
I'll wait on that. But yeah.
Yep.
So Mark, before you head out, any predictions or any
Yeah.
last comments?
One more comment was it was in the discussions between Fleming and I, it was kind of given a choice to him between Chase Brown and Nick Chubb. And if he had chosen Nick Chubb, I'd still be here. And I think Fleming would have been safe as well. So that's just another
Wait, he would have
adding.
done Chubb for
Uh, he would have done Chubb for Brian Robinson straight up. And
no way. You would have done
honestly,
that?
in
Oh wait, no.
uh,
He would have done that. That's crazy. Getting Chubb
he would
for
have done that, and we were ready to do it as well. But it ended up being Chase Brown, just like just because we did it so close to game time. I think it just like wasn't as discussed. Like we didn't have a preference because we thought Chubb had a better long term implication for us because I don't think we would have started Chase Brown a lot in the next couple weeks. So just adding another thing that hurts, of course, but it's the small things that matter.
I want to say, hold on. Let me.
Um,
Fleming was not like a dominant scorer last week, and
would he have
um,
not been safe?
I
I
don't think he would have been safe,
hold
Mark.
on a second because Chubb scored 4, and Chase Brown scored like 23.
22.
So
Yeah,
subtract
23.
19 from Fleming and add those points back to your team. Fleming would
You'd
have
have
been
had to
down
be
to like
Phil.
80, 84. Yeah, Fleming would have gotten eliminated. Phil got 87. So
Wow. Wow.
splitting hairs
Well, at
here.
least I'm the MVP of his week 8 team or whatever.
You are.
Um, but yeah, it's the small moves that hurt. We should have known to keep Chase Brown due to his matchup that week.
Like, come on.
Um, but yeah, predictions. Um, or for league winner or who goes out or both.
Give me everything. I don't unless you plan to be on
Cool.
another week. I don't know if you will be because now you're not in the league. So unless you
I'd
care to
I'd
handle
make
those
another
matches.
guest appearance.
Okay.
I'd make another guest appearance in a couple weeks. But who's out this week? There were 4 teams that were like in all 3 of your graphs were all ranked really closely to each other.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was Ryan, Phil, Fleming, and one other. I don't. Yeah,
Jake
Jake.
or Phil. Yeah, one of these
It's
guys.
one of those. Yeah, I
Not
think it's
these
gonna
guys.
be
You
one of
think
those
it's
guys.
not this
Not
guy?
we've been like saying David's gonna be gone week over week, and he keeps surviving, and I think his team is building morale off of that.
Uh-huh.
So I'm gonna predict one of those 4 guys. If I had to pick one, it might be Fleming because I don't know if Chase Brown is gonna continue to score 22 points. So my prediction for this week is unfortunately Fleming. Prediction to win it all. I'm gonna say Johnny just because
Mm.
I'm a fab like elitist. I love having fab and the flexibility because an injury or two happens, you might not be safe down the road and have the flexibility to fix that. So I'm gonna go Johnny.
It's a good point. If one of my guys gets hurt, I'll feel really dumb that I have 0 fab. Not
Yeah, I
dumb,
enjoy the
but
flexibility of fab.
fab does give you that position of power. So Johnny to win it all,
Yeah.
Fleming to go this week, and this is my power rankings. All I did, Mark, you were first, and I just bumped everyone up 1. I don't think anything really
Yeah.
drastically changed. I considered moving James down because I think he's got a bad outlook this week. CD's hurt a little bit. I think he's going to play, but there's a chance he doesn't play. And then he has Olave who got hurt really badly. So James could slide, but ultimately I don't think it was drastic enough yet for me to change this overall power rankings because he has the second most fab as well. That's an important thing to note and why he's here.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I'll say my final closing remarks before I head out. I gotta go, but it's been a pleasure. I'm excited for next week. Have a fun rest of the season, and as always, go commies, go Commanders. So
Go
see you
Tom. Got
all.
the Steelers this week. Yeah, thanks for being on, Mark.
I know. Yeah,
Bye,
see
Mark.
y'all.
See ya. All right. Now we just have the team slides. Ryan, you still here?
Yep.
It was eerily quiet. Okay. My team. Barkley. Coming in huge. And then I added... And also, let's give a little shout out to Cortland Sutton. This was like a week 2 acquisition for me. I think I got him off of like Cooper's team or something like that. Spent 8 fab early in the season, and I've held on to him. Not started him every week because Broncos have been a little shaky here and there. But yeah, I'm glad he finally got his time to shine once in my starting lineup. But I had Jamar and Jonathan Taylor for the rest of my fab. I kind of planned it out that way on my bids to be like, okay, if I get Jamar... Also, I knew that David was probably going to put 10 on JT, so if I do 11, I could only possibly be beaten by Huff, James, or Johnny if they choose to bid more than 11. So I felt comfortable bidding the rest of my fab if I happen to get those guys for those exact numbers, and that's what happened. So I'll have to live with it. My projection this week, I got a lot of green. At this point, most of everyone's graphs are going to be green. The only yellows are for 7, 8, and 9. So you really don't want... Yellows are like the equivalent of having a red right now. You don't want them. So Dowdle at my flex 2 is, in theory, my worst guy. Added the Chiefs defense, who have... Who the heck do they even have this week?
Broncos.
Which I don't love that, but I don't hate it. I think the Chiefs are a steady defense. They're steady enough.
I'm going to need to see some more consistency from Knicks before I proclaim the Broncos a bad matchup.
Right. The Chiefs defense, all I'm doing here is playing a floor play. The Chiefs defense does not score very high. They have one double-digit scoring week on the season, but their worst week was last week against the Bucks with 2, and typically they're scoring in the 5 to 9 range.
Bucks are good. Bucks are good.
So, floor play there with the Chiefs. And I'd say my tough matchup of the week is Jonathan Taylor against the Bills. Although the Bills are, on paper, an easy team to run the ball against. It's a green matchup, actually, but I still think I worry about that because I don't trust the Colts right now. That's the only reason people probably had hesitation on Jonathan Taylor and why I got him for only 11. We'll see, though. We'll see how that goes. 0 fab. James's team, he does no moves that spend any fab. He's got, what did I say? You don't want yellow. It's like having red. Look at this. This is not good for James. JSN came in huge last week for him. He's on bye this week. Not that that's like a major guy that's on bye. James, I didn't do the thing where I listed off who has big buys that are problems, but James has Lockett and JSN on bye and Jordan Love on bye, so he has to roll with Mahomes again against Denver, which I have as his toughest matchup of the week. The other one, I almost threw it down, was he has the Ravens defense starting against Cincinnati. Although I feel like that's a bad matchup. It's a bad matchup, but I feel like I got to put him more.
I'll speak for you because you're biased. That's a bad matchup.
Okay, thank you. What did the Ravens score last time we played them? 1, and I don't know how because we scored. I guess
a million points.
36, but in theory,
that's a lot.
So he acquires Wandale and Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley's a sneaky guy and actually has him as his best wide receiver too. But to see that CeeDee Lamb is his, if he's out,
I think. Sorry to cut you off.
No.
I think Levis is back, which I think hurts Ridley.
It does.
And Cooper Rush, he has decent. CD has decent stats I saw when Rush starts, but
I'm not concerned about I'm more concerned about CD's injury. I'm okay with Rush.
I'm more concerned about Rush. And the Eagles have been decent on the defensive end too.
They have been actually.
So, yeah, I think James is in trouble.
James is in deep doo-doo this week.
And he's dead to me for not trading with me Hopkins. So he's really in trouble.
James having Derrick Henry and the Ravens defense tonight, that could go. He could be like, in theory, Derrick Henry is by far his best player. He needs Derrick Henry to put up 20 to really feel safe going into Sunday. If Derrick Henry only puts up like 13 or something moderate like that, I think James should be really worried. And then the Ravens defense will see what they do as well, but I'm not high on them.
Well, as we saw with Mark, I don't know. Like, he got 19 from Devontae, who he's not banking on getting him 19. If James gets 20 from Derrick Henry,
he's not safe.
I still don't think he's that safe. Yeah,
no,
that was all I was going to say.
He'll feel better though, certainly.
I think the expectation for Derrick Henry at this point needs to be like, he should score maybe not 20. He should score 16 or 17,
Right. 100 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah.
Absolute floor for Derrick Henry. I will say, though, last time the Bengals played the Ravens, we absolutely stifled Derrick Henry until he burst off like a 50-yard run in overtime. It was like 15 carries for 35 yards. Like, I'm not even kidding. It was terrible, like 2.5 yards a carry. But with a touchdown. So that could happen again. Now the Ravens are at home. In theory, I don't know, better environment for them. But we will see. And Dobbins, by the way, was fine last week, even though I said he had a bad matchup. So Dobbins is pretty solid. But his matchup this week is Tennessee. Actually, if you look at James's team, every single one of his matchups is orange or red. Not
trouble.
Good. I guess hence
Trouble.
why his weekly ratings, these are this week ratings, not rest of season, are all looking bad. And this, currently what's showing here is who he has, because his entire bench is on bye or injured, being Olave and T. Higgins. So tough look for James. Jake. Hurts has been his top scorer for like 3 weeks straight. He doesn't do anything this week to acquire anybody. I still think he is a half-decent team right now where he shouldn't really feel worried, but needs to probably start planning for the late game, because actually an argument can be made that you can start almost like maybe 6 of these 9 guys in the championship or in the Final Four once you get there. You maybe want a better tight end than Ferguson and a better flex too than Javonte Williams, but Zay Flowers, A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, those guys have been great. I don't think Zay Flowers is going to get hurt too much by Deontay Johnson being there. If anything, it should help him not get CB1 coverage all the time. And then these running backs are great. So
yeah, I mean, well, 2 things. Actually, a couple things. It's interesting. I mean, Gibbs is obviously so good, but he gets pretty decently out-touched by Montgomery week to week. And I'm obviously a Montgomery. I'm a Montgomery simp, and Gibbs. I'm not saying Gibbs is unstartable. However, let's say he has a week where he doesn't bust one. Maybe that's a problem. And I don't actually think Zay Flowers will benefit from Deontay. I mean, they spread it around. They spread it around so much as is. So I don't know if I think Zay. Because Zay, if you look at his game logs, it'll be like 2, 20, 3, 15, and so anyway, I don't know, week to week that might change, but those are my initial thoughts.
That's fair. Yeah, looking at his last 5 weeks, if you're looking at like the most recent, he had 1 bad week of 3.5. That was 1 catch for 11 yards and 1 carry for 19. That's really bad. He was only targeted 1 time that week too. Every other week he's been
I had him that week, yeah.
Awful.
That was
tough.
Brutal. Yeah.
But the 4 other weeks he's been targeted almost double-digit times in half those weeks and scored at a minimum 15 points. So he seems like a pretty safe
look at
play.
the first. Okay, but look
I
at the first.
But the Ravens were bad. The Ravens were like 2-3 through 5 weeks. Like they weren't. The Ravens hadn't figured it out yet.
They lost to the Chiefs. They had some
Raiders.
They played some good teams. They did lose to the Raiders. That's right. But they also, I think, they had some other tough ones. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Actually, they were 3-2 through 5 weeks. Sorry, I don't want to have that wrong. They started at 0-2 and then won 3 straight. Yeah. So we'll see. Different opinions on Jake's players. I like Zay Flowers. Maybe not for myself.
I mean, I like him. I was more so
cautiously. You're being
cautious, and I think Deontay hurts him. What are my 2 thoughts?
Sure, we'll see. I have a tough matchup as Devontae and Casey.
He still has Madison starting.
Yeah,
so
I assume this assumes Javonte will take that spot.
Right, right.
And I'm assuming he does that, and then that to me is his worst matchup of the week.
Yeah, but he has shown to be a negligent fantasy manager. So
I mean, he hasn't started someone. Actually, he has started someone out, but not. This is different. This guy's on bye. It's not like you don't know if he's going to play or not. If he looks 1 time, he'll fix that.
Correct, and that's what I'm. I hope he looks 1 time.
Yeah, okay. I would hope he does too.
He missed waivers. I mean, I don't know.
Did he miss it, or did he? I mean, I think he's fine. He didn't need to do anything, to be honest.
I think. Okay.
Maybe. I mean, yeah, we'll see.
He's missed waivers.
To be fair, this has worked for him so far. Actually,
it worked for TVR. That's not a good strategy.
Okay, maybe. Here's my thought though. It's different here because Jake's team is actually better than Tom's was last year. At this point in the season, here's my thought. If we compare Jake and David, who both at 5 weeks ago were in bad spots. David was going through all the injuries. Pacheco, Jonathan Taylor, yada yada yada. Jake, similar deal. AJ Brown was hurt. He had doubling up on skill positions on bad teams, just not good. But the fact that he did nothing, the fact that he was negligent and just started him anyway and went through it and survived, he came out the other end with all this fab, and now he's in a very modest he's in a better spot than he probably would have been if he panicked 5 weeks ago. David,
I agree,
panicked.
but I think he didn't. I don't think he panicked because of negligence. and I don't know if negligence, as we saw with Tom, I think it catches up to you. So
sure, it will. That's why I'm saying Jake is probably not going to win the league. But I'm
yeah.
saying if David did what Jake did, I think there were multiple weeks in a row where David actually would have been fine doing nothing. Like he would not have died.
Correct. He
Doing
almost screwed himself when he did the Darnold for Allen thing.
yeah, that he didn't need to do
Because
that,
Allen
and he
scored
didn't
like
need to
2
trade away
points.
Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah. For Etienne. Yeah. Sorry, David.
Yeah,
that was a tough one.
So those two trades, if David had Josh Allen and Jonathan Taylor right now, he'd be looking a lot better than he is. Although he's still surviving, and I think he'll survive again. But long term makes it really hard to see him winning. But anyway, I was comparing the two, and saying that they were both in bad spots back then. Jake did nothing, now he's fine. David overreacted in theory, and now he's in a bad spot. So it worked out for Jake in a weird way. So Johnny, his highest score last week was Chuba, but he dumps him and grabs CMC off the market for 14 Fab. And he still owns the market in Fab. I believe I bid like 12 or 13 on CMC. In theory, I guess I wish I hit that instead of Jonathan Taylor, but I already hit the Jamar, so I didn't have enough Fab to get both. But anyway, 14 is a good number for CMC for Johnny. I think he's probably happy with that. A guy that would probably start for the rest of the season unless, I don't know, any kind of complication with coming back from an injury. I doubt it at this point. I feel like it's been long enough. Should be fine.
Do they have Neighbors as the number 2 wide receiver this week?
Wow. Against Carolina, yes. The number 2 wide receiver 1.
I mean, yeah, that's a good matchup.
Behind only Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, he should have a good week.
Give me your guy. Who's your guy that's a better? I have Jamar, so it can't be
Jamar.
But I have Jamar as a wide receiver too.
I thought it just ranking. Okay.
So
yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I think in theory, but that would mean either they have Jamar as number 2, and Neighbors number 3, but because of whatever, because I have both, it puts him down. But
right, I gotcha. Yeah,
I can't think of many other people. It's not going to be CD. He's kind of banged up. AJ Brown, maybe. I don't know. Off the top of my head, couldn't think of another one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess you're not wrong.
I think Neighbors will pop off this week. Johnny also gets Devonta Smith and Brian Robinson. May or may not start Brian Robinson, but he will be starting Devonta Smith. No Brian Robinson in his lineup. So we'll see if $3 is worth it for that. His team's pretty good. Brian Robinson might have trouble seeing the starting lineup for the rest of the season, but
I mean, Ramondre is not like a shoo-in.
I mean, Ramondre actually is not who he has. Ryan has Brian Thomas in as well.
Okay, I mean, sure, go start them over Brian Robinson. Although they have the Steelers, I won't shame him.
Yeah, I understand that decision. Wait. Brian Robinson has the Steelers. But he's starting. I have a tough matchup as Jaden Daniels against the Steelers. Obviously, Steelers defense has been tough. But Jaden Daniels has been awesome. But go ahead.
I guess my point is he'll see the starting lineup. Brian Robinson will.
Brian Robinson.
No, I'm not worried about whether or not he sees the field.
Yeah. Then they got Philly and Dallas after that. Those are probably the last 2 times he plays them before his teams. He probably has better options. Given that he has CMC and Mixon, who might be 2 of the top 3 running backs right now. Right. James Cook is great too.
Ironically, Joey had them both. Not that he would have lasted this long without CMC, but
you're right. Those were his 2 first picks. Wow.
Shout out Joey. Good draft.
Good draft, Joey.
And Rashee Rice. What
could have been for Joey? Wow. His quarterback was, I want to say, Caleb Williams, though, which is actually starting to work out.
He had Aaron Rodgers, too.
Both starting to work out later in the season.
Yeah.
I think only other thing to note for Johnny is Brock Bowers on bye. He has to plug in Pitts. The rest of his team should be good to carry the way. Pitts has a bad week, but Pitts often has good weeks, so should be okay. They have New Orleans. But Jaden Daniels, what I want to say is I think Jaden Daniels has had a great season, but this might be the week where he gets like his welcome to the NFL rookie moment where you're playing a really tough defense. Not in Pittsburgh, though, to be fair. It'd be much harder if it was in Pittsburgh. But that's my take. Still has 68 Fab. We're spending a lot of time on these team slides, actually. But I think at this point in the season, we got to, like, pick each team apart. There's only 9 teams left now, so we can really dive into them. David not picking up an ice cube this week, or any negative accolade. Josh Allen, top scorer, 23. Kareem Hunt and Pollard have been like the staples of his team. Outside of Josh Allen, it seems his receivers have struggled a lot. He picks up Jawan Jennings just today, and they have him as a flex-worthy play. Jameson Williams and Kittle. Kittle's the big one, obviously. The tight end 1 on the season, even with a bye. So once again, I think David will squeak by. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't have him as my prediction to get eliminated this week, but
I think David has some tough matchups. I also don't think he gets eliminated. Spoiler. That's my real take. But I think Tank has the Jets.
No. That was last week.
Oh,
right.
Who do they have? Oh, they have Detroit. That's another tough matchup.
Shootout, though, maybe.
Pollard. They had a tough one.
Pollard is Chargers.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I think Hunt will carry them, but I mean, Pollard has got to come back to earth at some point. As bad as that offense is, we will see. But I think the last couple of weeks he's had some good matchups. I don't think they're as good this week. Was my only thought there. But
right.
I do think there's other teams that have tough matchups this week, namely James.
You know what? David has Waddle on his bench, actually, and Jameson Williams in.
I don't like either of those players.
JMO against Houston, at Houston, Waddle at Rams on Monday night. Here's one thing about starting a guy Monday night is it keeps the door open. If David can somehow, if he needs something Monday night and doesn't want to trust it in Waddle, he could go, say, trade for Cup. I don't know what
$4. I'm not giving him
Cup
for $4.
and a player maybe. What if he threw you Pollard or Josh Allen? Like maybe or Kittle. You'd maybe consider that.
Maybe.
Even though they've already played, but it'd be like a trade that goes through even if David got eliminated. Actually, how does that work? If you guys do a trade of say for Kittle, who's already played, and then David still gets eliminated. Does Kittle get dropped?
They should lock. On ESPN, they lock.
Right.
I don't know about
Kittle won't leave his roster but until the next week starts. But if he gets eliminated, his team gets dropped. So then is that the risk you're willing to take? Like the trade gets canceled essentially? But no, the trade can't get canceled because or maybe
it just wouldn't process.
So David wouldn't even be able to get Cup from you in theory if that's what he was going to do. Anyway,
I guess. Yeah.
So never mind. I was going to say maybe there's a strategic edge to putting Waddle in so that you can have the ability to make a move Monday. Jameson Williams plays Sunday night, so I guess he can still wait to make that decision. So does Tank Dell. So David has 2 guys Sunday night that he'll need to bank on in hopefully a shootout that he'll be hoping for.
It could be.
I have a tough matchup as Hunt versus Denver. While Denver is better against wide receivers and quarterbacks, running backs seem to be okay against Denver. I could see a world where this is a really low-scoring game. The Chiefs' offense doesn't actually seem that dominant to me, although they looked pretty okay last week, but the Bucs are no...
You're just holding that from the Bengals game. Like, that's just residual effects of, like, the Bengals played well against them.
No, I disagree. Mahomes has thrown, like, more interceptions than touchdowns this year, and the Chiefs are barely putting up, like... I don't have the graph of, like, team's average score on the year, but I guarantee you the Chiefs are very mid. They're not a high-scoring offense right now.
I mean, Hunt's kind of been matchup proof, but
it does seem to be that way. But I'm more saying like my thought here is Hunt has been like the staple of David's team right now, and if he has a bad week, which I could see a world where that happens, then that's the one I'm watching out for.
Yeah.
I also think this past week was Mahomes' highest fantasy point week on the season, which is not saying much.
Yeah,
I don't think I'm being biased saying the Chiefs are having a very not high octane offense this year. But anyway, Huff's team, H.A.N. Kamara carried the way. He actually had a pretty not strong week from his team. Kyler put up like 4 points. Connor, being his third best scorer, only put up 13, and the rest was like low double digit scorers. However, he's got a lot of green this week, so he's looking pretty okay. Receivers were looking good. Tyreek seems to slowly be getting it back with Tua back. Devontae Adams seems to be on the up, who we acquired this week for 7. Drake London's been great. And Achane and Kamara seem like they'll continue to be good. Achane really has seen the improvement with Tua back more so than anyone else on the Dolphins offense.
Not Waddle.
Not Waddle. It's that he did score last week.
He still only got like
negative
6
yards.
points.
Negative yards with a touchdown.
And he only had like 19 before that. So
right. So I think his matchups to watch out for are the ones that you see here are Kyler and James Conner, I would say, against the Jets. Mainly Kyler. James Conner seems to give you a good floor every week. Philly defense against Dallas seems pretty good too. Third most fab in the league with 13 left. But Call of Duty Kyler, keep in mind if you all remember the Kyler does bad after the new Call of Duty is released thing, and that held true last week. We'll see if it keeps up. All right, Fleming's team, the whole Chase Brown. I'm disappointed in Giffy. They don't have a Chase Brown.
They go to Illinois. That's crazy.
Yeah, did you know that he went to Illinois?
Well, no, I did not know that, but I also am surprised that the only GIF you could find was a college one.
Yeah, Giffy needs to step it up. Also, I moved on. I was like, okay, Giffy, you don't have it. And then I just Googled Chase Brown GIF Bengals. Can't find one that isn't like extremely terrible quality. Like, this isn't even great quality, but it's good enough.
Better, yeah.
Top scorer last week, Fleming, as we went over the scenarios, would have been eliminated if he didn't trade for him at all or if he chose Chubb over him. So you made the right choice, Fleming, and you're here. You're still here because of it. Wow, savors the day. Here's another typo. But Fleming is another team with a lot of tough matchups this week. Mark predicted Fleming, right? To go this week. He's got Stafford, not even a top-tier quarterback at this point in the season. But we've talked about it. It is good with.
Who's lower? Do they have two QBs worse than Stafford?
This week, yes. Let's see. They have Kyler as the worst.
Kyler makes sense.
And Jaden Daniels a little better, and Mahomes. That makes sense. Like that makes a lot of sense to me. So Stafford's in theory all right, but not a great matchup. Najee at Washington, Chase Brown at Baltimore. I could see a world where Chase Brown does not have a good game against Baltimore, even though he should be the workhorse. They did bring in Khalil Herbert. I don't think that impacts him much 1 week in, but we almost saw no snaps from any other running back on the Bengals last week. I think the next guy was Travion Williams. Maybe got a couple snaps, but I barely saw anyone else but Chase Brown on the field. So now we might see a little bit. Marvin Harrison Jr., bad matchup against the Jets. Goes along with Kyler having a bad matchup against the Jets. A lot of red and orange across his entire lineup. Only good matchups they have are Amon-Ra at Houston and Giants at Carolina. Are his only green matchups of the week. Everyone else was tough. Terry McLaurin at Pittsburgh, Kelsey, Denver. So tough. But yeah, we'll see. 2 fab left. Not much left to work with, but something. Ryan, you could potentially have been gone if you had picked a different quarterback. Let's see.
Or traded Burrow for $1.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, like let's say you did. Like I went Dak, who scored 12 or 14 or whatever. So if you started Dak and scored 18 less points, you'd still be alive at 82. But Burrow did help you be a lot safer this week, and in theory has a good matchup again against against Baltimore. I'm liking your other matchups. Kyron seems to be semi-matchup proof. Kyron against Miami, Breece Hall against Arizona, great matchups. I have your tough one as D-Hop versus Denver. Although normally I would want to take like one of your top studs as a guy that has a potential bad matchup, but I don't see any that have a potential bad matchup. Maybe Kupp versus Miami, but we talked about this, that Miami seems to be like a falsely good defense against wide receivers and quarterbacks just because they've all been low-scoring games. But now with Tua back, they should start having higher-scoring games, and their defense will do worse.
So it's interesting. And I'm not advocating for this. However, ESPN sent a push notification, upgrade Chiefs wide receivers against Denver, citing their recent defensive woes. I don't necessarily upgrade them. However, it is interesting that they're very much coming the opposite way,
Who's they?
Oh. What do you mean?
You said who? You said they're coming the opposite way.
ESPN is basically advocating for the opposite. Like they sent a push notification
That they think
like
Chiefs wide receivers actually have a good
upgrade
matchup.
Chiefs wide receivers against the Broncos was like the notification. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, the Broncos are coming off they did not do well defending the Ravens, but the Ravens are a far better offense than the Chiefs.
Also, we talk about this every week, but what number flex is Montgomery? 6? Is
8?
he a 6?
Are you trying to read that number?
Yeah.
It's an 8.
I mean, that's terrible.
I would disagree with that. He's against Houston, which is red, but I think he's kind of matchup proof.
I think he's matchup proof.
Anyone on the Lions is matchup proof. You are starting, except for Laporta, who's been bad. Every week you are starting Amon-Ra,
Montgomery, Gibbs, and Ross.
That's it. Those are all the locks. Those guys are never getting benched. Probably, maybe until the championship. Who do the Lions have week 16 and 17? They have.
I haven't looked at
Chicago, San Francisco. Not fantastic matchups, but we'll see. It is kind of the point.
Maybe Chicago might be in shambles by then, but
maybe it seems to be the way it goes. Fall off at the end of the year. They look decent right now, though.
They did not look good last week.
Not last week, but there was a span of time when they thought they looked okay.
Yeah, correct. I would agree.
All right, Philip picking up the trash can. Lamar once again did not have to change these two guys or the GIF. Lamar and Bijan carrying the way as usual. Aaron Jones was not his third best scorer, but Aaron Jones should continue to be good for him. Rashad White did a good job for him on Monday night. But now he picks up Chuba Hubbard and Pickens for $0. Great $0 acquisitions, if you ask me. Those are improvements on his team. He's got Tracy. Tracy's been really good. And now is a great matchup.
And another great matchup.
So Phillip is actually looking great on the matchups. Not to give him like a false sense of security. His only bad matchup, according to the analytics, is Hunter Henry at Chicago. But Hunter Henry's not going to put up massive numbers anyway. But maybe he will. With Drake May back,
he's looked good.
I think he could be better than the worst tight end in the league here.
And it's an interesting Phil. I agree. Phil has some great matchups. Aaron Jones is not sexy, but he's been quietly getting.
Boy, that's juicy.
He's been awesome. I mean, he gets almost 20 carries if you look at the numbers.
Yeah.
Aside from the game he sat and the game he got hurt, he basically is pushing 20 carries almost every time on a good offense. Yep, on a good offense. And as teams continue, Phil was looking rough for a few weeks, but as teams continue to drop serviceable players, I think his floor of flexes is just going to continue to kind of slowly creep up. So I mean, he's not going to win the league, but I think he, has obviously already exceeded expectations.
Shout out auto draft.
Yeah, and I mean, more and more, you're going to see guys popping off on waivers. There's guys out there at this point who are capable of popping off, which we haven't really seen until maybe a couple weeks ago. But
yeah. And to look at the $0 bids this week, or the best players that were acquired for $0, it started with Nick Chubb, Phil got Pickens, Jamison Williams, Kyle Pitts, Marvin Harrison for $0.
He's been not good.
I know he's not good, but for $0, I would take a flyer. Yeah. Throw Marvin Harrison Jr. on my bench for $0. But yeah, so Phil, like you said, Phil's in a good spot. I have his bad matchup as DJ Moore versus New England, just because I think DJ Moore and the Bears are struggling right now. New England's not actually a hard matchup, not that hard of a matchup, but DJ Moore has shown to put up duds often. So, risky. Phil, in theory, I mean, I don't know. If you were looking to be on the safer side, I wouldn't hate if he threw in Jordan Addison, Pittman, or even Worthy over DJ Moore. I think there's a case to be made for those. But
I maybe like Addison of those.
Yeah. Pittman scares me now. Pittman's just as scary as DJ Moore if you saw what he did last week. So
Pittman stinks.
Yeah.
But
I finally dropped
him. And Worthy's
Guillotine League.
Yeah, and Worthy is hit or miss.
He did negative points last week. So really the only the one that gives you a little more sense of security is Jordan Addison, especially with a good matchup against Jacksonville. So okay. Last but not least, we already said it. Mark's team dead. 57 fab into the void. Nothing else to say. You saw the rankings. We're over an hour. It's the same. Oh shoot! It just happened. Okay. Why did it do it? I thought. Oh, I forgot to I have to change like the settings that it comes in on a click. I didn't do that. All right, Fleming. This is my hot take. So Mark agreed with me without knowing. We agreed. I said I think the candidates to me this week are Fleming, James. There is one other that's not an obvious like. What's it? No, that might have been it. Fleming and James have really tough matchups this week, and have injuries. Fleming has, as we know, Mike Evans still hurt. Yeah, I guess here, let me get my full take on Fleming. I think here's why, actually. I was going to say James, but I think with Higgins out, I think James is going to make a move between now and Sunday. Because normally I'll make a prediction, and then that person will make a move to save themselves. And I think not that James would make the move because I said it. I think he would maybe do it anyway. My prediction is that James will make a move to make himself safer. Fleming will not because he doesn't have Fab. And Fleming has bad matchups this week. Specifically, both his running backs, Najee and Chase Brown against Washington and Baltimore. Marvin Harris Jr. at Jets. Kelsey versus Denver. McLaurin versus Pittsburgh. It's a lot. It's a lot of bad matchups. That's it. That's my take on Fleming.
Yeah, he was one I was looking at, and I think his team is better than a handful of others. Honestly, he just comes down to the matchups. He's got some tough ones. I was gonna say James, but I almost feel like that's not a hot take this week. I do think James goes, but that's not a hot take. My hot take, which is only hot this week, I think it's David's time. I think David goes. I think Pollard's matchup catches up to him. Dell hasn't. I guess Nico's probably still out, so I think Dell has maybe one more week of like real viability of being a nice piece. Maybe he's still a piece for another couple of weeks, but no longer kind of that high volume guy.
Could be good for him.
Maybe,
So he doesn't
maybe,
coverage.
yeah. McConkey's been hit or miss, and I think ultimately, if his flexes scored 0 points, nobody would be surprised. Is what it comes down to.
Zero.
And I think
Juwan Jennings and JMO.
Like I'm not saying it'll happen. I'm saying if Jennings got 0 and Jameson got 0, you can't say that is a huge surprise. You know, like Jameson's had a bunch of weeks where he's done nothing. Like 0.1, 0.7, 2 different weeks, and then he had another week. He caught 1 touchdown for like 40 yards or something on 2 targets. So obviously that worked out, but I don't know. I think it's risky, and I think it bites him. So David's my take this week.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's well overdue, but I still see him surviving another week. Wait, I think it's hot. Did you not say earlier in this video that you said, spoiler alert, David is not my prediction?
Yeah, I think I changed. Well, I was thinking because the James was my prediction, and then I saw all your graphs, and I was like, that's not really a hot take. So
okay.
The same way that David wasn't your prediction when he was projected 30 less points than everybody else, you know?
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah, looking at his team, I'd say I would very much respect the move to start Juwan Jennings. So I think the theory is we can see the ceiling. I mean, not that Juwan Jennings will ever score 41 again, but we can definitely see like a high scoring double-digit week from Juwan Jennings, and we've struggled to see that from Waddle this year, hence why he has Waddle on his bench. So I think he's basically Jalen Waddle's the floor play. Juwan Jennings is the boom bust play, and he's going with the boom bust play right now. So I guess I respect that. He knows.
I don't think he needs it anymore.
Spot. Maybe he doesn't need it. You're right. Other people are in worse positions than he is. But
yeah.
There's a way Waddle.
Maybe he'll change his mind after he watches. Yeah, maybe he'll change his mind.
I like to believe I have a lot of pull, and then I make people change their mind.
Yeah, I don't know if David.
I'm playing reverse psychology. I actually hope he keeps his lineup exactly as is.
So
yeah. But yeah, okay.
All right. Good takes. That's a long video.
And not quite as long as last week, but somehow these are getting longer and longer. But I enjoy doing them, so good times. We'll wrap it up here. Good luck, everyone. As always, don't get eliminated.